I am going to start with a prayer from, I talked with Matthew yesterday, and he started rambling about this book that he had started reading. Uh, and I will be absolutely honest, I did not really understand what he said, but he said that this was a great book. So I went and found it online. It's only like 5 pages long or 8 pages or something. And I tell you, I read it and I don't understand it either. It was written like in, I don't know, 100 BC or something, or 100 AD. Um, so it was an early Christian mystic. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph. Um, and it does sort of, well, you'll understand why I don't really understand it. Supernal triad, deity above all essence, knowledge and goodness, guide of Christians to divine wisdom, direct our path to the ultimate summit of your mystical knowledge, most incomprehensible, most luminous, and most exalted, where the pure, absolute, and immutable mysteries of theology are veiled in the dazzling obscurity of the secret silence, outshining all brilliance with the intensity of their darkness, and surcharging our blinded intellects with the utterly impalpable and invisible fairness of glories surpassing all beauty.
Nicely done, Bruce. Yeah, this is from The Mystical Theology by Dionysius the Areopagite. It's pretty amazing text, quite short, if anybody's interested. Let's do a meditation. So sit upright, good posture. Inhale and exhale through the nose. Eyes closed or open. And just watch your breath for a few cycles, however it is. Scan the body from head to toe. With each breath, inhale into any tensions that you find. On the exhale, relax and release those tensions while maintaining your posture. Good. Now maintain focus only on the breath. You can count if it helps, 1 to 10 breaths, and then repeat. Or just keep the awareness continuously on the flow of the breath. If you find your attention has wandered, just gently return your attention to the breath. Continue following the breath. If any distractions come or interrupt your focus, gently note now what they are. For example, that is a thought, that is a sensation, that is an emotion. A few simple categories are enough. After you've noted the distraction, again, just gently return your attention to the breath. Now let everything just be as it is. Let the breath continue of its own accord. let the attention do what it will. Let the mind do whatever it wants without wanting or rejecting, without clinging or judging. Just rest in this open awareness. As you conclude the meditation, just take note of how you feel, what sensations you have. If you feel relaxed, calm, at peace, remember this feeling and remember this place.
Thank you, Matthew. So I had a thought while I was meditating,
Good.
and it was a memory of a walk. I think maybe the first or second walk I took a long time ago, and I we were talking about prayer,
Mm.
and you gave me a sort of description or understanding of prayer that I never thought of before, and I'm wondering if you remember what it is. I it took me to think about prayer. There were like four levels of prayer or something. You
Mhm.
remember?
Let's see if I do. I mean, I remember having this conversation. Um, yeah, um, the most basic kind of prayer is just remembrance of, or no, I take it back. Now, most basic type of prayer is just acknowledgement of a higher power. However you imagine or conceptualize this higher power isn't as important as just acknowledging that there is this higher power in which everything is happening, including you. And so I don't know if I'll get these all in order correctly, but the next component is just remembering. So that's the most basic kind of prayer, is just to recall and remember this higher power that you've acknowledged throughout the day and throughout your life. That's the most basic kind of prayer. The next level is to start to trust in this higher power. So, for example, if you're going through a difficult time, to place your trust in that higher power, it's out of your hands. And so after this kind of trust is built, the next layer is love of the higher power. And after that is surrender. So those are kind of the levels. Acknowledgement, remembrance, trust, love, and surrender. I think I added maybe remembrance in there. I think I added remembrance. That actually goes throughout, kind of. But yeah, that's yeah, that's how I think about it. It's really the spiritual journey encapsulated through prayer.
Yeah, you remembered it. That was great. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions about prayer and what Matthew just said?
There's other aspects of prayer too. For example, many people, if they don't have any experience with prayer, think about it in terms of words, right? And that's always good to start with. But as this progression goes from the acknowledgement to the trust to the love to the surrender, the words become fewer and fewer and fewer until really the surrender is, like a holy silence. Yeah. So there's that aspect as well. And the same with concepts, right? At the beginning, your idea of this higher power may be very conceptual, or you might have an image or a story of what this higher power is, how it functions in the world, how it organizes the world, and so on. You may have all kinds of ideas about these things. And like the words, as you go on through this progression, the ideas, the concepts, and the stories also become less and less and less.
I don't see any hands raised, although I don't see everyone. So if you have a question, just blurt it out. Otherwise, we will move on. Um,
I just want to shout out to Kevin there. Is that Kevin? Did you just log in? Hey,
It is. I'm not sure why it said Dave on my thing, but
it said I see Galaxy S23, which is a cool name. So
okay, yeah, I guess I need to update my stuff then. Thank you.
that's fine. Good to see you.
Kevin, can you tell us about yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I met Mark probably would have been 5 or 6 years ago. And then I started going to CSS, the Center for Sacred Science in Eugene. And then unfortunately, I went to college around 2018 and just kind of became unconscious. and lost the path, and got pretty stuck in my old addictions and my own ways. And now I'm a couple months ago, I was laid off, and I have time in my life to kind of rebuild things. And so I've been doing everything I can to move forward and get back on the path. And so here I am.
Well, welcome, and hope you can make a good opportunity of this pause in your life.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so I have not prepared my introduction, so I'm going to ramble for a bit here. Um, and hopefully, we all remember Matthew's very short teaching without changing anything, free yourself of everything now. Um, and uh, perhaps as we thought that or meditated on that or worked with that, we've wondered, well, what does he mean by everything? Um, and of course, it's thoughts and it's our sense of self and all of that stuff. Um, so we're going to call those views. We have to sort of free ourselves of all our views. So, Matthew, what tell us a little bit about what when you talk about being free of views, what do you mean by a view? And
Yeah, it's a good question because it seems to be a word I use as you've caught on to it. Um, so a view, the way I'm using it is, you could just say it's like a reified thought. In other words, um, a view is a thought that you take to be real. Here's another way of thinking about it. You've probably all heard the saying, all is one, right? It's practically, and not even practically, it is a cliche, right? It sounds almost trite to say it, but really, it really is what this spiritual endeavor is about. As oneness is, as you know, Bruce, that's that's what I'm always trying to steer the conversation toward is an acknowledgement of oneness. Yeah. And views are the result of the mind partitioning and separating this oneness. So it means a lot of different things. Like you said, a view could be practically anything. And with regard to all those various things like thoughts, concepts, ideas, views, the real sticking point is that we like how they say in Buddhism, the sticking point is attachment. See, it's attachment to the views that is at issue. So what is that? Well, it's like a belief that the thoughts are real, and then clinging to that view. That's what it is. I don't know how to make it more clear.
so we all have a lot of views, right?
Yeah.
How do we free ourselves of each view?
First, you have to see that they're there. Generally speaking, we go through our lives completely immersed in this view. Like we've gone into a movie theater and all the lights go out and we're, just totally engrossed in the movie. In other words, we don't realize it's a movie. We're 100% in, on the view, whatever it is. So we don't even really question it. We take it absolutely to be really what's going on. So the first thing is, a kind of inquiry to see what kind of views do you hold? And are they real? And a lot of times we can see this, particularly with troubling thoughts or things like that. If you examine them, you see that they're invariably based on false ideas, or at least there are some false ideas mixed in. And so the view as a whole isn't real.
Give us an example of that.
Oh, geez. um, it could be anything like self-doubt. Let's say you're going to get on a Zoom call and you have to give a talk about views or some crazy thing. And you think, how am I going to make this clear? There's no way to really explain it so that people will get it. So that's a thought. Now, if one believes in a thought like that, then you become locked into that view and everything that's associated with it. Because you've taken it to be real. And then when another view comes along, you try to fit it into that view. And something else comes along and you try to fit it into that view. You see, we have all these different competing views. If you've ever had like internal conflict over anything, a decision that has to be made, doing something that you don't want to do, whatever it is, the internal conflict, that feeling of internal conflict, is essentially a battle of conflicting views. If you've ever tried to make a decision by, like my parents used to tell me, make a list of the positives and the negatives, of each possibility. Say, so you're like, okay, this is positive, these are the negatives. These are positives over here and the negatives over here. These are two views that are in conflict with each other, and you're trying to navigate them. The more you believe that those views are real in some way, the more you will suffer from this decision crisis. I forget what the question was, actually.
Well, so everyone, if you got questions, but one of the views that you and I have talked about and that I struggle with hopelessly is that the world and me are not the same. That I am separate from the world, and that I'm a self.
Yeah, I mean, these are the big
bigger views.
Yes. So if you start with smaller views, for example, like my example, the positives and the negatives of the decision that you have to make. So the important thing is to see that they are just thoughts. They're just views. They're ideas about the future, about a decision, about what might happen, about the ramifications of the decision, about your life and the story of your life. And all of these things are wrapped up in that. So, but if you can see everything all at once, all the views, all the positives, all the negatives, and see that they're all appearing right now in the mind, and that beyond that, there is no reality to them, then you can kind of see that there is a kind of clarity beyond all those views. It might not immediately solve all your problems. You might still feel like, oh, I still have to make this decision. But this that clarity beyond the views is a lot more peaceful than being wrapped up or believing in all of those views. The stakes are so much higher then. It's like in meditation, if you've ever gotten the instruction to watch your thoughts and to see the thoughts passing by like clouds in a blue sky. Well, the clouds are various views, and the blue sky is that clarity beyond. So, that's what we're always kind of, I should say that's what I'm always trying to talk about, is that clear blue sky beyond all the views. And, Bruce, what you were talking about, and we can get into this more, is that, in the various spiritual traditions, it's quite clear the self, yourself, as an individual, as an ego person, is a view. And it's the primary view that we believe in, that we think is real. We kind of adopt that view, and then our whole life begins, and we adopt various other associated views that arise with that view, like the world, for example.
I'd like to just join with you and appreciate how you frame when you get into that clear, spacious mind. There's a lightness about life because you come back and you have to have views to function, because I need to know if I need to take a right turn or not, at a certain level. I mean, to function at this level of reality, I have to have views. But once I developed a much more spacious mind, everything really lightened up, including, heavier things like I have to have a view. I vote, so I have a view. But I'm better at not losing my equanimity if the person I voted for doesn't win, as another level of views. And we go on and on, but from the really mundane to really powerful, important viewpoints, which I need to carry to function, and I want to have them. The equanimity is a really pleasant place to be through the ego awareness.
Yeah. Like I said, in a way, the views aren't a problem, or the contents of those views aren't a problem. In other words, the thoughts aren't really a problem. The understanding the world isn't a problem. Your ego isn't even really a problem. It's when we think these things are the highest reality, that's the problem. That's what causes us to suffer so much. When we think that's what constitutes the most real, say. This relates to the whole thing we're talking about prayer, in terms of acknowledging that there is a higher power, that there is a blue sky, that there is a transcendent reality, that beyond all views, compared to which any particular view is nothing, really. And so, yeah, that definitely is a harbinger of deep equanimity to see that. Kevin, do you have a question?
Yeah, would you say that so like you were saying, we all have views, and views can be important in our life and living day to day, but beyond the views is more of a knowing, because I can have beliefs that this is a multidimensional reality and this and that, but I guess it takes that knowing of experience through meditation and that kind of stuff. That's like kind of the level beyond belief and views, is more so of a knowing and a deep experience.
Yeah. Um, all what we call knowing, or the ordinary knowing, is actually just belief and views. So in answer to your question, yes, there is something beyond all that. But yeah, you can know it, but it's not like knowing something. Do you see what I mean? It's not like knowing a particular story about the universe, or a particular story about yourself, or something. See, that would be something particular. It would be a view.
Like a truth knowing, though, kind of like a, you know what I mean? Like something beyond that's more tangible than just if that makes sense, you know?
It does. And yes, it's utterly tangible. But what I'm saying is, it's just the opposite of knowing something particular. Just for as an example, in the we in the prayer at the beginning, I guess you weren't there, Bruce read a prayer from a book by a Christian mystic, Dionysius the Areopagite. And in this tradition, the type of knowing that is beyond all knowing is referred to as unknowing. So it's just a way to say it's a kind of it's a different kind of knowing than what we're used to. When we're used to, like, yeah, I know, certain facts about the world or something like that. It's more like you said, like a deeper truth knowing. But that truth can't really be described. And yet, it. It's like a clear sky. Yeah.
John, did you have a question, or did you just pop up on my screen?
Did you say me, Bruce?
Yes, I did.
No, I don't. I don't have a question. Appreciate the discussion, and especially I think maybe what I heard Kevin relating to was just a very deeply, profoundly felt sort of something, a knowledge or a feeling or a loss, a joy. It's just so profound, like your awakened state. There aren't words for it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's it. I always say, look, we all know this deep down. That's why you're all here, because deep down you already know what I'm talking about. And so every person has this kind of secret knowledge within them. And that's what leads us on a spiritual path. That's what leads us to ask, what else is there? What's going on? The big questions. What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? And so on. We intuitively know that there's something deeper to our experience.
So one thing you have said to access that deeper is to fold all views into no view.
Yeah.
So speak to that.
In order to keep this profound truth at bay, sort of, and keep our various thoughts about ourselves and the world in the forefront of our awareness, we play like a kind of shell game where we never take in the whole picture. And what I mean by that is, just for example, when we think about the self, we ignore the world. And when we think about the world, we forget about the self. In other words, we partition off these things as if they're separate. But how could they be separate? Where are you? Where is the world? Right? Everything must be in one reality, right? So what is that reality? So, that's where I'm always going on about when I talk about find out what you're leaving out. And it's hard because we don't just leave out one thing. Like I said, it's like a shell game. We'll say, oh, I'm leaving that out. You pull that into view, but while you do that, you'll push something else out of view. And so, we do this to keep the feeling of being a separate individual, of being a person separate and apart from the world, like we're, in the chambers of the mind looking out at the world, even to the point of feeling like our own body is somehow separate from the world. This is me, that is the world. How is it that your body is not a part of the world? How is it that your mind is not a part of what you're seeing? And so this teaching I have about folding everything in is really about oneness. It's about how can we approach conceptually an all-encompassing oneness or an all-encompassing view, so that we remove all the partitions and fold everything into one view. Then we just have to push that aside and we can, we have a nice no view, clear view. And so let's see. In a way, in a way, really all spiritual practices are trying to do this, what I'm trying to describe here, fold everything into one view. Even, for example, the most basic meditation practices, like watching the breath. What is that? It's trying to just make the whole view the breath. Or like a mantra practice. You're given a word and you repeat the word over and over. Even, in the back of your mind, it's just repeating on itself. So this is, again, this practice of making everything, it's like putting all the views into one basket, into one view. So now you just everything becomes this mantra. So you can look at all practices like that. Is a way of slowly whittling down the views. And, in my own experience, I was struggling with the question, what is my mind and where did it come from? I've told this story before, but it was pivotal on my own path. And I couldn't imagine where it was. Where could it be? You're looking at all of this stuff, at the body, at where is the mind? And I, again, this is a kind of conceptual practice. Again, I had the view that my mind was a function of my body, right? Like the brain. A lot of us have this view, right? That the mind is a function of the brain. So the mind comes from the body. Where did the body come from? Well, it comes from the world. So by this kind of tracing the path of the mind backwards, what I came to the conclusion is that my mind was the same, was what I was looking at, really, the same stuff as the world. That the mind was no different than the trees and the wall and the sky. And this was a real turning point. And the reason why I say it's a turning point is that my mind was what I was holding back, what I was holding separate. And what the idea of my mind was what I held to be my separate self. And once that became folded into the world, it was a turning point. And so, yeah, so I have, you can try this yourself. If you have, as many people do today, a materialistic, scientific worldview or whatever, it shouldn't be too much of a stretch for you to acknowledge that what you're seeing is an image of the mind. We go about our day looking at all the things that we see and hearing the things that we hear as if they're out there somewhere. As if there's a physical external world out there. And that we're just interpreting that in the mind, right? And then the mind creates this image that we can work with or whatever. But as an experiment or like a practice, or forget about the external world. Actually, we don't have any proof that it exists. Scientifically speaking, it's a fabrication. We don't have sort of scientific proof that there is an external world, nor could we, at least I can't imagine how we could ever have such proof, right? Because all we have is what we're seeing, what we're experiencing. So as an experiment, forget about the idea or the view of this external world and take the image you are seeing to be your own mind. And then ask yourself, where did that mind come from? So in the context of what you see, again, the mind came from the body came from the world. But the world, as we've just, in this exercise, the world is in your mind. So you can fold, for example, the mind into the world by saying the mind is just a function of the world. Or you can fold the world into the mind by saying, look, the world is just a function of the mind. There's no evidence of an external world. But each one of those creates actually a new subtle view. On the one hand, if you just fold the world into the mind, you get what's called, what is it called? Is it solipsism? Is that what it is when people say, oh, everything is everything just in your mind? Is that solipsism?
Well, solipsism is you're the only thing that exists.
Right. There you go. Yeah. So you end up there. um, and if you fold the mind into the world, you get a kind of radical materialism, I guess. There are some people who posit this thing that they say consciousness doesn't exist. It's all just matter. I don't know. It's a weird view, but it's a view. You can have that view. So, but if you take both of these ideas, mind as a function of world and world as a function of mind, and you see them both together, then it's like, the symbol of the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. It's an ancient symbol. And that's what it is. And then when you have that, there's nothing else. See, that's everything. That's you, the mind, the world, your experience. And there's no way out. There's nothing left out of that picture. You know what I'm saying? Except really nothing itself. But that's not actually out of the picture either. See, that's the backdrop of the whole picture. Once you see that, there's no place for your individual self to rest. There's no ground. There's nothing to hang on to. There's no ground to reality.
When you say mind, are you talking about awareness, or is awareness outside of mind?
Yeah, those are distinctions people make. Yeah, what I would say is the mind appears within awareness. So they are kind of two different things. Yeah. But other traditions use this differently. There's like the mind-only school of Buddhism. So some people speak of the one mind or the big mind. So if that's what you're talking about, then that's there's a small individual mind. That's the normal one we think about. The brain-created mind, the everyday mind, the individual mind, the ego mind, just as we would expect. And where does that mind appear? And that's where this idea of awareness comes in. You have to posit another sort of bigger mind that's just pure awareness. It's not yours or mine.
The separateness, I guess, that I was referring to, and you answered that for me, but like mine would be still in the duality of good and bad in a way, and awareness would be outside of that duality where it just is.
Yeah. The mind, what I say is ultimately the mind is an object appearing within consciousness. It's not even real. It's illusory, it's imaginary. So yeah, the mind is, along with good and bad and all these other, everything that appears as the contents of consciousness. See, we think the contents of consciousness is all of the world, and it is, of course, but it's also us. And our own mind is also contents of consciousness. It appears to us. We appear to ourselves. So in other words, the subject, which is us, and the object, which is the world, both of those things appear within consciousness. And we identify with the subject. We don't identify with the world. And this dividing line is what we call it's the boundary of the ego, basically. Everything out there is not me. Everything in here is me.
So, Matthew, this has been great. I'm going to abandon the rest of the discussion points because I think you've covered them. But what I had asked you to come up with a practice or a an opportunity for us to experience that mind and the world. And I did you do that?
Well, I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about. We can take a moment and try it. See?
I would like to take a moment and you talk us through that experience of those two ways that we create ourselves and create the world. And um,
Yeah, it's just an exercise. Think of it like, you ever see those like magic pictures where you have to like kind of squint your eyes and see it a particular way, and then the image pops out or something like that? Have you ever seen that? Or an optical illusion or something like that? Think of it like that, where you're just trying to see things in a different way than you're used to. So, um, so for example, whatever you perceive as external, as I was saying, whatever is you think of as outside of yourself, including take to be the objective world, the object of consciousness. And like I said, for this exercise, forget that there is an external world. Whatever you are seeing is appearing in your mind, your ordinary mind. Don't overthink it, right? It's just we have this idea of the mind that interprets everything that we're seeing. Just look around you. Try to see this appearance as a purely subjective appearance only. A purely subjective mental image. There's nothing beyond it, not that we know of. So there's just this image appearing in the mind. The same with whatever you hear. Again, where is the sound coming from? It's coming from your own mind. What you consider to be out there is actually your mind. Now, ask yourself, where did this mind come from? It's not just your thoughts. It's your thoughts, the sounds, the sensations, your body. We have this story that, the mind comes from the body and the body comes from the world. But when you see that everything is appearing within the mind, including the body and the world and the mind, where is the real mind? It's everywhere. And it doesn't come from anywhere because there's no place else. The only way we can make sense of it is by grounding it somewhere arbitrarily and establishing a view and saying, that's where I'm going to make my stand or make my ground. And then we can build up a whole kind of worldview from there and say, oh, there's the material world and living beings in that, and evolution and time and space and brains, individual minds. You know, we create the whole kind of worldview that we have. And there's nothing wrong with that. See, there's nothing wrong with that view. But see that it's only a view. And one of the ways that you can do that is by seeing things in a completely different way. And if you saw things in a way that was completely different, but that was just as convincing as your current way of seeing things, that's a big step towards seeing that the way you're seeing things now is also only a constructed view and not the fundamental reality.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Something that's kind of trippy and mysterious to me.
Yeah.
Well, one of the zillion things is how,
Right.
but is how stable kind of the dream is. How stable. I mean, I have the same house. You know, I'm looking at you. I'll probably see you next month too. You know, I mean, I get it. I can't get out of my own mind. It's easy for me to. I can't get out of it. That's obvious to me. The world is within me. I get it because where else could it be? However, it's like I don't know if you could speak. You understand where I'm coming from. It's like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stability of the show is very mysterious to me.
Yeah, what I would say is, it's clearly, in the literature, for example, they liken it to a dream, but it has more stability than a dream, right? However, um, it's only by contrast to the dream that it has stability. When you really examine it, it's changing all the time in 1,000 million different ways, constantly.
I mean, I hear that. I know the molecules are all good. I know my body's recycling itself, constantly. However, you look pretty much the same. I get the whole thing's going to dissolve. I'm not going to be here. Who knows when? And everything's, but still the stability within, I, you know, I, um, I'm very grateful for it because it gives me something to hang on to, and I think it's a gift from the universe to have the level of stability there is within all the instability. Um,
This,
but
another thing to think about, and again, these are just different ways to investigate what you're talking about, because I understand this is um, a common idea and not a bad one. It's an interesting one. That's why it's fruitful for investigation. What creates that stability? Is it really that stable? Each time you look at me, you're seeing me anew. It's your mind creates this stability. And also, there is a cause and effect to everything. And so that creates a kind of stability, but it's a stability within constant change. So much of what we think about as stability is just a part of the story we're telling ourselves. Think about how limited the human mind is, or our view of the human mind is, right? We perceive time passing in a very human scale, right? But if you change the perception of time, for example, we're all dead and gone like that. Mountains rise up and collapse like that. Stars come into being and burn out. See, it's all the perception of stability is related to our particular view. Alan Watts does this talk. This reminds me of it. He talks about how we always see ourselves as being in the middle. When you think about how we think about the universe, there are all these things that are smaller and smaller than us, and all of these things that are bigger than us, and we always kind of see ourselves as being in the middle. That's our view. See, we view ourselves as being, what is this saying? Man is the measure of all things, right? We're the measure of all things. So you could say something is big or small, but it can only be big or small when you compare it to something else. And then depending on what you compare it to, you say it's big or small. Now, is it big or small? Well, it depends. Is it stable or not stable? It depends on what you compare it to.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I see Larry has his hand up.
So I think you just answered my question. So if David would have said it's unstable, I think you would have argued it's really stable. It's because he said it's stable, you're saying, oh, it's unstable.
Yeah.
And so I think it's neither or it's both. It doesn't really matter.
Yes, that's right. Each one is a view. Exactly. Yeah, and this is exactly what you can say, with regard to this, this exercise that we just did, this practice that we just did. A question that might arise to somebody would be, well, is it material or mental then? It's neither. We don't know what it is. It's the same as that question. Is it stable or unstable? Depends on your view.
Well, when I want to get home on time and when I want to take a shower, I like it stable.
Well, that's when it's important to have a view. Like you said, it comes in handy, Yeah.
No, seriously, thank you. That was some helpful feedback. Appreciate it.
Thanks for pushing with the questions. Yeah, it's good.
Are there other questions right now? So you said, I looked up my notes, and that consciousness has no content. And I think that applies to what you're talking about now.
Well, there is content. It's just that consciousness isn't solely its contents.
Consciousness is not its content.
Yes, this is, if we take consciousness to be its contents, that's becoming trapped in a view. That's taking a view. Say we have a thought and we believe in that thought, and we believe that thought is what's real, is the ground of reality, then that's taking a view. So, and the whole world is the contents of consciousness. So things appear within consciousness. This relates to the instruction about the thoughts passing in the clear blue sky. So as an analogy, the clear blue sky is consciousness itself, while the thoughts are the contents of consciousness. It's all consciousness, right? But there are the contents, and there is just the consciousness itself, pure, without anything in it, without any subject and without any object. And this is where, if you ask me to point, I would say, consider deep sleep. Or consider, as they say in Zen, your true face before you were born, before your mother and father conceived you. See, it's a kind of nothing, no content, no time, no space, no body, no world, no thoughts, no sensations, no eye, no ear, no, hey, like the Heart Sutra says. Yeah. And like the mystical theology too.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I read this to Bruce last night. Those of you who are familiar with the Heart Sutra, my favorite part of the Heart Sutra is always where, this exhaustive negation. There is, in emptiness, there is no eye, no ear, no mind, no death, it just goes on and on and on. It's pretty, so there's this whole methodology of finding the ultimate truth through negation, negating all views. See, anything that you perceive cannot be it. That's just contents within consciousness. So you put that aside. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. And you just keep doing this until you arrive at that pure consciousness without subject or object. Emptiness, or Buddha nature. But maybe I'll conclude with this because it's such a beautiful passage, and it really expresses the same thing so clearly, or nothing so clearly. So this is the last chapter of the Mystical Theology by Dionysius the Areopagite. Chapter 5, that he who is the preeminent cause of all things intelligibly perceived is not himself any of those things. Again, ascending yet higher, we maintain that he is neither soul nor intellect, nor has he imagination, opinion, reason, or understanding. Nor can he be expressed or conceived, since he is neither number nor order, nor greatness nor smallness, nor equality nor inequality, nor similarity nor dissimilarity. Neither is he standing nor moving nor at rest. Neither has he power nor is power, nor is light. Neither does he live nor is he life. Neither is he essence nor eternity nor time, nor is he subject to intelligible contact, nor is he science nor truth nor kingship nor wisdom, neither one nor oneness, nor Godhead nor goodness. Nor is he spirit according to our understanding, nor filiation, nor paternity, nor anything else known to us or to any other being of the things that are or the things that are not. Neither does anything that is that is neither does anything that is know him as he is, nor does he know existing things according to existing knowledge. Neither can the reason attain to him, nor name him, nor know him. Neither is he darkness nor light, nor the false nor the true, nor can any affirmation or negation be applied to him. For although we may affirm or deny the things below him, we can neither affirm nor deny him, insomuch as the all-perfect and unique cause of all things transcends all affirmation, and the simple preeminence of his absolute nature is outside every negation, free from every limitation and beyond all of them. So even negating negation, all distinctions, whether by attribution or negation, are pointless when talking about this ultimate truth, this oneness. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. I went back to my notes and I had misquoted you when I pulled it out of my head. Your quote was, "Consciousness is never its content." Not that it has no content, it is never its content, which is what Dionysius has just rambled on about with a lot of big words. And
yeah.
does
Yeah,
any
but it's a wonderful text, and I think you can see it's talking about the same thing, the same message as you see in the Heart Sutra, for example,
Yeah.
or in this tradition, Neti Neti, from the Indian tradition of not this method of reaching the absolute truth.
And if you Google mystical theology, you can find the book in some PDF or something, and
It's pretty short. It's actually just like 8 pages or something.
Yeah. Does anyone have any final comments or questions? Not seeing.
Silence. Yeah. Golden silence.
I have one. Well, trying to take all this in, Matthew, thank you. I found myself searching for a favorite quote of mine by Rumi. That says, "You are the whole ocean. Why send out for a sip of dew?" But
Yeah. That's a good concluding line, why settle for less than the whole truth?
So let's dedicate this evening to each of us, that we may reach the whole truth. I don't know what the right word is there. See that we can discover the depths of consciousness. And may we also hope that all beings find that peace of that deeper sense of being, of awareness, of consciousness, of presence, whatever we call it. And may, as that unfolds in us, may it just settle this world down. So, Matthew, blessings to you. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for your kind attention and for your efforts. And it was great seeing you all, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Peace to you all.